Assalamualaikum and very good day to all of you. I am Dr. Nadia binti Darus, who going to cover on the first topic of first part for my part lah, actually for the final part for the subject. Okay, so later on I will share to all of you the outlines or the planning for this topic. Okay, I have divided into several parts so that it is easier for us to follow. Okay, for the first class, for the first session, okay, which is for today, we are going to cover on the first part of construction noise, okay, which focusing on construction noise issues and also management, right? And one more thing, currently we are in week 13, right? So we try to cover the final parts of or the rest part of this sustainability subject, MKAM1133 section 03. Okay, as I mentioned previously, supposed to be there are 6 of you registered for the subject, right? Okay, so now let me proceed. Okay, all right. Before we go in detail, sebelum kita go through one by one for each of the content for the first session with the theme part 1, right? So I would like to have some check regarding 2 main items. The first one, our topics, okay? And then the second one is our assessment, meaning that assessments for my part only. Excluded the assessment by Dr. Rozana and also Dr. Herozan. Okay. All right. Regarding the topics that we are going to cover for this week with the team, I have divided into 4 parts actually. Okay, part 1 until part 4. However, later on, if we are able to manage and kita cuba je lah combine yang mana boleh, so that at the end we try to have more focus on later part, which is calculation. Okay, for your information, this we call these topics or this part involve calculation. Okay, so later on akan ada ni lah calculation yang berkaitan dengan topik ni. Okay, untuk part early part, I will share more on fundamental, more on principle, and then later we try to relate all of this and we try to prepare the calculation, right? Calculation for construction noise, especially for the prediction. Okay, so this topic have been divided into 4 main parts. So as for now, we have part 1, construction noise issues and management. This one, and then later on we will have for our later session for today, we will cover on construction noise propagation, and then this one supposed to be by tomorrow. We will cover this rest of the topic, the construction noise monitoring, measurement, and development. And then we have construction noise prediction, right? Okay, so that's all the summary for the topics that I'm going to cover before our class, the last part of our class. And one more thing is that previously I have shared with all of you this main book reference book. Okay, so this book entitled Construction Noise Issues, Measurements and Prediction, right? So untuk makluman semua, this is the main reference that I have used for this class, okay, that we are going to refer. However, for the content of the lecture also, we can kira summary based on this book. So for those yang dah beli hari tu, okay, yang tak beli pun okay, as long as you can call can follow, can understand the content, right? So part of this book, apart from this book, I'm also refer to other references. So later on, I will share to all of you the content and also the sub-contents for this topic. Okay. All right. So that's all for the list of topics that we are going to cover. And then for the assessment part, supposedly I will cover for 20% of your carry marks, meaning that for your assessment, okay, this one excluding your marks for final exam. Okay. So for my part, I have decided that 20%, this 20% will be contribute for this one, group assignment. Okay. So later on, I will share the detail for this group assignment. And then this one, week 15, I think the submission date, okay, for the assignment. However, this one to be confirmed later on. Okay. This one, week 15. Any information, any updates regarding the assessment to be updated in the WhatsApp group and also in the e-learning, right? Okay, so one more thing regarding your final exam. Okay, final exam so far, it will be on 5th, right? 5 hari bulan. 5th of February. Betul tak? Betul kan? Yeah. Semua dengar tak? Risau je. Terputus ke apa?
Dengar, betul.
Okay, betul kan? 5 hari bulan 2 kan?
Betul. Sampai bulan 2 pagi.
Betul pagi. Right. So for your final exam, I'm not sure whether Dr. Rozana, either Dr. Rozana or Dr. Hairuzan has mentioned regarding this one. However, just a reminder, just a soft reminder, this final exam will cover all 3 parts, meaning that all parts by 3 of us, Dr. Rozana, Dr. Hairuzan, and me. Okay, so the marks distribution will be 30, if I'm not mistaken, 30 for Dr. Rozana's part, and then another 30 for Dr. Hairuzan. And for my part, we are going to cover for 40. Okay, so the total will be 100, right? So this is just for your information regarding the final exam. Okay. So so far okay berkenaan ni kita punya quick check. Anything to clarify or anything to ask? That's semua clear. Clear? So kalau senyapnya I assume tak ada soalan lain, so that we can proceed. Another reminder, throughout our lecture, throughout our class, if you have anything to clarify, if you have anything to share or discuss, just interrupt me during the class, okay? I'm okay with that as long as it's related to our class, okay? So that we can share, we can discuss together, right? So now let's proceed to our first class, right? Which is on part 1. All right, as I mentioned just now, this part 1 will focus more on introduction, more on fundamental and also principal part of our topics, which is construction noise. All right, so there are several sub-content or several subtopics for the first part, which include all of these, starting from I'm going to cover on construction noise issues, both worldwide and in local perspective in Malaysia. And then we will proceed to the potential construction noise sources so that we will have a clear view on what's actually the sources of noise which contribute to the construction noise, alright? And after that, we are going to cover on types of construction noise effect, right? Again, all of these are quite fundamental. However, it's very necessary so that we can understand the basic first. Later on, we try to relate with the calculation. Okay, and then the other thing that quite important is that we need to know the related noise laws and regulation. Okay, as we already know that we have so many laws and regulation for each of specific works or working environment. Okay, so that we need to choose the related one, choose the proper one so that it can match our case or our situation, especially in terms of construction noise, right? And part of laws and regulation, we will going to get on this one, noise guidelines, okay? And for the last part, last subtopic for part 1, we are going also cover on this one, construction noise mitigations, right? Okay, so if all of you so far okay, then we will proceed. For the introduction of we call the brief introduction for this topic, I will start on the briefing on this one, overview of construction noise issues worldwide. Okay, and then later on we are going to cover on noise issues for the local scope or local perspective, right? Okay, so back if we are looking back to this noise construction noise, so basically at the awal-awal maksudnya at the earlier part kita punya concern regarding construction noise is quite lacking because most of us are not aware and not concerned regarding the construction noise. However, currently since I'm not sure, tapi kita dah moving towards ni lah, sustainability, moving toward green environment. So all of these issues, including the construction noise, have been taken into consideration. So that's why it is very necessary for us to know and at least to know the what we call basic overview so that we can try to implement and also try to practice in the actual environment lah. Okay. Alright, so as for the introduction, construction noise issues worldwide began since 1963. Okay, this one in the UK, United Kingdom. So this Wilson report is the earliest report of construction noise. So maksudnya as early as 1963, this issue of construction noise has been recorded, okay, in the United Kingdom because at that time various sources of noise affecting their cities, their major cities. So that's why dia become ni lah jadi satu isu yang significant at that time. Okay, so ni kira macam starting lah untuk concern on construction noise issues. And based on this report, it became a worldwide catalyst for the environmentalists. So all environmentalists around the world, kiranya based on this report lah, they try to explore more on these construction noise issues. Okay, so ni adalah dia punya starting line lah berkenaan construction noise. Okay, which is kalau kita punya local perspective ataupun local scope quite far away lah sebab kita pun start concern on noise issues quite late sebenarnya, tapi as for now we are still developing, we are still improving in terms of the what we call guidelines, in terms of the regulation. So hopefully kita punya level pun going to be better lah. Right? Okay. So that's the first report for the earliest report on construction noise. And then at the same time, since this report has been recorded and has been published, ni pun ada satu Department of Environment, Food and Welfare, also in the UK. Okay, they are continuously record the noise level. Okay, for the purpose of monitoring, for the purpose of to what we call to monitor their current situation regarding the construction noise. Okay, so at that time, okay, noise from roads, roadworks, construction and demolition activities increased threefold. So that's why this department in the UK has taken some initiative to monitor the noise level. Okay, and one more thing is that kalau kita dah ada construction noise, so for sure we will have this one excessive noise exposure. Okay, so bila dah ada excessive noise exposure, that one will contribute to the noise complaint. So kalau kes yang dekat UK ni, majority of the residents were exposed to the noise level exceeding the level yang dah outlined by the WHO. Okay, so later on throughout the class, I will cover on related laws and regulation, related guidelines for the construction noise. Okay, so that kita akan cuba tally lah apa yang kita dah tengok dengan available guidelines, right? Okay, so far semua okay right? Boleh dengar ke?
Okey, Doktor.
Okay Semua dah makan ke? Tengah hari ni. Sorry. Okay. So we are going to cover the next one on this, still on noise issues worldwide. Okay, this one dia ada report ataupun dia ada study by Department of Markets and Consumers. Okay, this one they have conducted an interview in the City of London. Okay, same also because they are focusing on to know the situation, okay, regarding the construction noise issues. So they conduct the interview based on their interview and also based on their study. Noise sources from building work was the major contributing noise pollution among the population. Okay, so it is already mentioned that building works, among other sources of noise, contribute as majority sources of noise. Okay, and then it's also mentioned that building works were the most frequent noise sources experienced by the selected workers and residents. Meaning that ni dia punya population ataupun dia punya respondent for the interview, right? So based on their study, dia punya summary lah kalau kita tengok kat sini, based on these two pie charts, building works here and also the other one also we have building works. So both based on the response by the workers and residents, building works recorded the highest. Okay, kalau yang ni based on workers recorded the highest lah, 54% as compared to the rest of the noise type. Okay, dia ada category of noise ataupun dia punya sources of noise. Kalau ikut based on resident, the record also quite high lah kat sini, tinggi juga sebab it contribute for 20%, which is almost similar dengan yang traffic noise. Okay, so apa yang kita boleh summarize kat sini adalah building works itself ataupun construction contributes the most to the statistic, okay, statistic of construction noise, statistic of the noise issues, okay, as the sources of noise, right? Okay, the next one, continue to this one, okay, regarding the noise issues, okay, just for your view, okay, in relation to the situation of these construction noise issues worldwide, maksudnya dekat UK, dekat US, around the world, kita experience almost the same issue on construction noise. Okay, this one related to the report made by the affected public through the hotline in the US. Okay, so the public or the resident yang affected has compiled the report using this platform lah. Okay, so based on the report, it revealed among that noise, what we call complaint to majority on noise complaint. Okay, so sebab dia kira cepat respond to that, what we call to that situation or to that issue. So they come up with the new regulation, okay, to avoid annoyance to the residents. So this one part of the mitigation lah, part of the control method that we are also going to cover later on, okay, in terms of the noise mitigation. Okay, and then this one for the situation in the US, and then similarly for in Japan, okay. We can see that construction noise complaints exceeded traffic noise complaints of 30% compared to 3%. Okay, so maksudnya dekat Japan pun dia reported the same issue, ada noise complaints by the affected population lah, especially selalunya public ataupun resident. Okay. Okay, saya rasa itu je untuk noise issues worldwide. Do we have more? Alright. So just now kita dah tengok dekat issues that happen around the world lah, around the globe. Okay, so now we are focusing on the issues in Malaysia. Okay, sebelum saya lupa, most of the content, most of the apa panggil dia punya kandungan lecture saya ni based on the main reference, and also some part saya refer juga to the other reference, okay? Reference either research book or journal or article paper, okay? So there are some combination lah. Okay. For the local issues regarding the construction noise, okay, pihak yang utama, the main party ataupun the main department in charge yang as we already know, we have Department of Environment, DOE. So DOE is the main party who plays important role regarding these environmental issues, including noise. Okay. However, as for our own report, construction noise data is still limited. Okay, as I mentioned, kita punya concern dekat sebelum ni, kita punya concern ataupun awareness on construction noise is still lacking. So we are improving, we are collecting, still updating the data, updating any record related to construction noise. Okay, and then however, there are some basic information available in the database, including the ambient noise level. Okay, ambient noise level ni lebih kepada background lah, background noise level at certain situation ataupun certain environment. Okay, that one refers to the background noise level. And based on the assessment also by DOE, both day and night ambient levels were over the limit. So nanti yang ni pun kita akan tengok juga based on the DOE regulation. I will share the permissible noise limit regarding the construction noise. Okay. Okay, another thing, kalau ni based on the record ataupun report by the JPCC, Johor Bahru City Council, okay, most of the project development were reported to cause these four main issues. Okay, vibration, noise, air and also water pollution. So bila kita tengok kat sini, noise dah jadi part of the issues, right? And dia recorded what ni lah highest record juga, which is the same with the water and drainage issues. So meaning that based on the report, it should be our main concern because this one is the major issues happen. Okay, ni yang record dekat JB lah. So for sure dekat any other bandar-bandar utama macam KL, Penang, we also have experienced almost similar situation. Okay. Alright. So far okay semua? Boleh ke?
Doktor.
Okay Alright. So kalau ada apa-apa tak clear boleh je tanya terus. Okay. So saya harap semua okay lah untuk kita proceed to the next subtopic. So, let me continue. Alright, this is also the continuation from for the construction noise issues in Malaysia in our local scope. Actually, there are so many complaints ataupun report by the affected community through local media. Okay, local media selalunya newspaper lah ataupun direct report to the local authority. Okay, so based on the report, we can assume or we can see that more people were actually annoyed with the construction noise. Okay, some complaints even have resulted in the project being stopped. Okay, so ni ada satu case tu dekat KL. Saya I'm not really sure tahun berapa, cuma pernah berlaku once the affected resident have compiled the complaints to the DPKL, okay, and then DPKL issue ni lah, macam saman kepada ni lah developer atau contractor tu sendiri, and then they need to stop the work for a while, macam digantung sementara lah, okay. And then ni contoh-contoh report ataupun complaint made to the local media. This one for the newspaper. Okay, this one happened in Ampang. Okay, di mana macam yang saya dah mention, dia punya report berkenaan dengan excessive construction noise issue. Maksudnya the nearby resident, nearby population affected by this excessive construction noise generation. This one for the construction of supermarket and apartment. Okay, so kalau ikutkan memang banyak sebenarnya reports ataupun komplain daripada residents berkenaan construction noise. Cuma sometimes benda tu kita tak maksudnya person yang in charge je tahu. Kadang-kadang benda ni happen, diorang terus react, and sometimes benda tu macam tak ada sangat respon, which is macam tak ada kesudahan. Okay, so that's why we need to improve in terms of the enforcement, in terms of the guidelines, so that all the related parties will play their roles in managing the construction noise. Okay, and then similarly, this is another report back in 2012. So maksudnya kat sini isu construction noise ni dah, kalau sekarang dah 2022, ni 10 years back lah berlaku. Okay, tapi at that time kita punya orang panggil, kita punya implementation, kita punya actual enforcement still dalam stage yang orang panggil improving stage yang at the early stage. So benda ni menjadi main issue lah. Okay. So kalau kat sini kita tengok report yang happen dekat Johor, sama juga dekat residential area which is located close to the construction site. Okay, kat sini it's mentioned that the nearby community ataupun the residents forced to deal with noise 24 hours. Okay, because the developer ataupun the contractor construct the works continuously without checking back to the permissible limit of working hours and permissible limit of noise. Okay, so that's why they have generated excessive noise, right? So at the end, memang the resident complain lah to the media and also to this local authorities. Selalunya residents akan refer kepada local authorities, pihak majlis ataupun pihak ni lah, perbandaran, and then that one akan di-expose pada media juga. Okay, sama juga ini back in 2016, just a similar situation. We have here the resident have sleepless night due to noise exposure. Okay, so memang dia punya reports ataupun dia punya complaints happen frequently lah, depending on the development tu sendiri. Okay, kalau dia punya noise management tu okay, so that's not become an issue. Sekarang ni yang masalahnya excessive noise generation. Okay, dia punya excessive noise exposure to the public or to the community, right? Okay, so next one. Okay, this one we will continue to look at on potential construction noise sources. Okay, so the first two sub-content is more on a situation ataupun kita punya issues lah, construction noise issues, both worldwide view and also for the local perspective. Okay, and the next one kita akan cuba tengok lah apa related potential ni construction noise sources. So kita dapat tahu sebenarnya based on what kind of sources that generates excessive noise. Okay. Alright, so on our right side, I have shared with all of you this code of practice for noise and vibration control on construction and office site. So basically this is British standard reference. Okay, this is the standard that we are referring to since starting, maksudnya DOE pun dia refer kat sini, okay, as the main reference, okay, in managing, in monitoring and also in controlling the noise. Okay, so in this report, in this standard, there are also several type of noise sources, especially for construction, has been listed out in these guidelines, okay, in this standard. So nanti together with the notes, together with the lecture recording, I will share the related, what we call the related reference that all of you can go through, okay, can refer to. Okay, so back again, refer back to these potential construction noise issues, noise sources, sorry. So basically, it is emitted by construction equipment, okay? Because we already know that we have so many type of construction plants and machineries utilized at construction sites. So that's actually the main sources of construction noise. Okay, because we have, depending on the scope of work, depending on the size of the project, we have various type of plant and machineries on site at one time, okay, at particular time, okay. So that actually the sources of noise, okay, For example, we have piling machine, we have excavator, dump truck, and so on. So all those heavy construction plant and machineries will usually generate higher noise level. Okay. So that's why they are categorized as the main sources of noise, right? And then it's related to many stages of work or construction activities, including the fabrication, erection, modification part of apart from the construction. We have demolition and or removal of any structures. So regardless of this activity, we have different sources of noise, okay, based on the type of plant and machineries that we have used, okay, we use for the each of the activity, right? So this one also related to the all activities in stages, demolition, set clearing, and so on. Okay, so meaning that all of these activities has its own required plant and machineries. So at the end, it will cause construction noise. For sure, it will generate the noise. However, we need to determine either the noise or the sound itself is within the allowable limit or it exceeds the limit. Okay, that's our concern. All right. And then, as I mentioned, since we have several activities, okay, maybe we have concurrent activities that need to be carried out. So for sure, we have these multiple sources of noise. All right, for example, just for a simple example, let's say we have earthwork, right? For earthwork, we have excavator, we have dump truck, compactor, and so on. So each of these plant and machinery sometimes working at the same time. So they will contribute to the multiple sources of noise, okay, because they are concurrently working at the same time. Okay. However, again, it will depends on the project scope ataupun dia punya project size lah. Okay. So lagi besar selalunya lagi besar project, the larger the project would be, then it will involve many or more construction plant and machineries in order for us to deliver the project. Okay. Okay. Then continue to that, we have this one. Okay, this one just similar to what I have explained just now. Multiple equipment or plant and machineries involved during specific construction process. Okay, this one for just now I have give you some example for site clearance and open work. We require several or various type of related plant and machineries. So each of these machinery will have its own function. Okay, for example, excavator will excavate the soil and then to dig the soil, and we use lorry or dump truck to transfer or moving the soil within the site or outside the site, okay, depending on the requirement of the project. So this what we call all of these machineries contribute to the total noise level. Okay, so kalau kita tengok gambar kat sini, ni memang dah orang panggil common view ataupun common situation dekat site lah. We have so many plant and machineries involved at one time. Okay, so that one will contribute to the multiple sources of noise. Okay. Alright, so the next one adalah perkenaan ini juga masih kita masih tengok dekat potential construction resources, right? Tapi so far okay semua? Masih dengar kan? Kalau saya terputus ke apa, takut internet.
Still listening.
Alright, okay, thank you Lynn. Okay, so we will continue still on these construction resources. Okay, however, this one more on factors influencing individual noise generation. Okay. Ni sangat penting lah sebab kita kena tahu what actually the factors, what actually the items that affect the individual noise generation. Okay, so that kita akan tahulah dia punya type of sources and at the same time apa sebenarnya dia punya factors ataupun reasons that influence the noise generation which contribute to the noise level, right? Okay, so here with I have listed for 5 different factors or reasons here. So I'm sure that kalau apa, you all refer to the other reference, for example, journal paper or article, you may panggil akan jumpalah the rest of the factor or sub factor, but still it relate to this 5 main factor lah. Okay, so for the simplicity, this is 5 main factors that may influence the individual noise generation. So the factors include equipment type, okay, meaning that the different types of the plant and machineries involved for a certain activities or construction activities. And then kalau yang kedua ni dia macam kereta jugalah, model apa, okay, untuk equipment tu sendiri. Okay, and then the third one we have type of operation ataupun type of activities, okay, required at the site. And then we have the fourth factor is on equipment condition. Okay, so as we know, kalau equipment tu still in a good and new condition, supposedly dia punya apa, in terms of noise generation sebab dia punya machineries or mechanical parts tu quite new, still new. So dia tak mostly tak akan generate excessive noise lah. Dia punya tu still under control depending on the condition itself. So bukan nak cakap yang baru tu semua okey, tapi most of the time macam kenderaan juga kan, macam kereta ataupun ini ada mechanical ni equipment, so dia punya performance, dia punya orang panggil any problems related to the equipment itself memang based on their condition lah. Okay, and one more factor is that maintenance. Okay, maintenance of the plant and machineries itself. So these 5 are the factors or main factors influencing individual noise generation. Okay, next one we are going to look at on this construction noise effect. Okay, so for each of the factors ni, you may try to explore more, try to self-revision regarding this one. Okay, sebab most of you, saya rasa semua you all memang dah biasa dengan condition dekat site, so boleh relate lah dengan actual punya practice ataupun dia punya actual situation, okay, in construction industry, construction site. Okay, and then the next one kita akan fokus on the noise effect. So far kita dah tengok dia punya issues, kita dah tengok dia punya factors for the early part, and the next sub content we are going to cover on this construction noise effect. So saya rasa in general most of us dah tahu, maksudnya secara brief, secara general apa sebenarnya noise effects, okay, especially this construction noise effect. However, for the purpose of our subject, we try to categorize, we try to look at each on each of these effect lah. Okay, sebab dia ada dia punya kategori, similarly goes to the type of noise actually. Later on saya akan cover juga in brief berkenaan jenis-jenis noise ni sendiri. Okay, so for the construction noise effects, for your information, we have two main categories for construction noise effect. Okay, the first one we have physical impact. Okay, and this one ada juga dekat kita punya main reference book. Okay, for those yang dah purchase buku boleh refer balik. Tapi siapa-siapa yang tak ada pun don't worry because all of this content actually memang extracted from the book, so it's okay as long as we can grab the main idea. Okay. Okay, continue to this for the categories of noise impact, which is for construction noise, kita ada physical and well-being impact. Okay, kalau physical ni dia more related to occupational noise. Okay, this one most of the cases are related to the construction workers itself ataupun any parties, anyone or any person who memang stay dekat site lah ni, sebab tu dia occupational noise. Okay, directly focus for the workers. Okay, dia punya main effect adalah in terms of auditory. Okay, kita punya sistem pendengaran lah, and the most common effect is related to noise-induced hearing loss, or kita mention juga dia sebagai NIHL. So NIHL ni another scope of study which is quite big ataupun quite panggil most of the researchers are focusing on this one because occupational noise ni it not happen only in construction site, it happens for all industries, especially manufacturing. So that's why NIHL became a major or main topic for the research to proceed. Okay, and then another effect related to the increase of hearing threshold, and then for the worst effect is that tinnitus. Okay, so this one more on physical ataupun hearing impact. Okay, the first category. The other one noise, construction noise effect related to the well-being impact, right? Well-being impact due to the environmental noise. Okay, just now we have occupational noise. So this category ataupun dia punya classification of noise later on saya akan share lagi, so that you have you will have clear view and you are able to differentiate. Okay, sebenarnya noise ni dia banyak sangat dia punya jenis dan juga dia punya cabang tu lah, dia punya branch. Okay, so we are going to get on that later on. Okay, so well-being impact dia lebih kepada daily activities disturbance. Okay, this one. And then for the community response here. So ni macam ni lah yang saya dah mention tadi berkenaan reports ataupun complaints by the community related to the construction noise. So that one will be categorized for this category, well-being impact. Okay, and for this community response, dia ada pula dia punya breakdown, dia ada dia punya pecahan. Okay, respond by the community dia ada boleh jadi dua lah. Yang utama memang annoyance here, and then we have no effect. So meaning that yang ni memang yang paling yang kita concern lah, sebab any noise annoyance akan menyebabkan the affected community compile the noise complaint, and untuk yang memang yang memang proaktif, memang dia betul-betul fight for the ni lah. So kita cuba control the situation so that all parties kan ada ni lah dia punya balance punya condition. Okay, so that we can proceed with the development in sustainable and protected way lah, environment. Okay, so that we can be fair to all, right? Okay, so yang no effect ni tak ada je lah, tak ada masalah. Maksudnya bukan tak ada masalah, sometimes setengah orang dia macam just let go je, dia buat tak tahu kan, tapi most of us for sure akan experience this noise annoyance, right? So again, noise annoyance ni juga can be divided into two. Okay, sama ada stress or habituation. Habituation ni almost the same with the knock effect. Maksudnya, you just take it as taking noise tu as part of their daily situation, and that one will be habituation. So most of them are okay with the situation. So benda tu bagi certain individual atau certain population tak jadi masalah lah. Okay, tapi yang normal, in normal condition, most of us akan ni lah experience this one stress. Okay, meaning that as part of the noise effect ataupun impact of construction noise to the population. Okay, so these three kita akan cuba cover, kita akan go in brief. Okay, each of these stress, apa dia punya description, and then apa dia punya example lah, so that kita boleh differentiate, right? Okay. So far, is everything good? Okay semua? Am I going too fast to explain everything? Boleh okay, semua okay ni? Semua senyap? Okay lah kot. Right? If you have anything to ask, you may do so, okay? Okay. Alright, so this is the first category ataupun dia punya tadi type of construction noise effects. Okay, the first one, we have the effects for physical or subjective, right? Okay, for this one, exposure to loud noise and loud sound increases arousal response in the body. So this one refers to the physical or subjective effect of noise. Okay, so it dia punya problems ni, it happens because of adrenaline in our body, okay, release in the blood. So ni dia relates lebih kepada medical punya condition lah, kita punya body condition where the heart rate, blood pressure and respiration increases. Lepas tu kita punya gastrointestinal mobility is restricted, and then blood vessel contracts and muscles are stretched. Okay, so benda ni sebenarnya maybe for certain people mungkin tak jadi masalah, maksudnya just a normal situation for them. Okay, however, it may affect some of us who have maybe low what we call metabolism, or maybe they have dia punya condition, body condition tu tak berapa okay. So it may happen to them, okay, it may affect them. So that's why we need to properly take this one as our main consideration. Okay, we need to concern on the effects of construction noise, right? And the other thing for physical effects, impulse from the brain activate centers of our autonomic nervous system, and then it will trigger a series of body reaction. Okay, so maksudnya any sudden or any excessive noise, what we call detect from our hearing system may give ataupun send the signal and activate the brain centers, and depending on the individual itself, macam mana dia punya reaction, okay, in terms of the general stress response. Okay, maybe as I mentioned, some of us benda tu tak jadi a big deal, okay, tapi it happens, okay, for some population, for some individual, okay, depending on their health condition, okay, especially for those who warga emas semua kan, okay, depending on their health condition, it may affect them, right? Okay, related to this one, okay, for the physical effects, it may affect systems such as glandular, cardiovascular, gastrointestinal and musculoskeletal. So all of this in detail saya tak akan cover lah, sebab ni pun medical punya term, tapi as long as kita tahu dia affect kita punya sistem cardiovascular, kita punya sistem musculoskeletal. So it happens to affect our body system. Okay, in overall, in summary, dia boleh affect lah kita punya any of the body system, right? Okay, so this is the visualization on the physical nurse effects. Okay. This is a physical manifestation of nerve stress, okay, which may affect our body. Mean that the whole body, tak adalah dia akan affect semua. Maksudnya maybe some parts of our body. Cuma depending on the situation, depending on the severity, and adakah kita aware ke tak aware berkenaan this effect to our body. Okay, kalau untuk kait dengan brain, dia boleh kalau yang terlalu severe punya condition, it will delay cognitive development in children. Okay, kalau kita tengok sini, each of these effects may be happen to some of us, and dia punya severity depends of individual punya health condition juga. Okay, dia banyak factors lah pula akan related to this effect of nerves in terms of the physical effects for our body system. So later on you may go through lah each of these effect. Sebab sebelum ni most of us memang tak aware berkenaan construction nerves ni, and then some of us may take it just situation tu, take it, the situation as nothing lah, maksudnya benda tu tak ada apa-apa pun, tapi sebenarnya at the end dia akan affect, okay, some of us, right? So that's why we need to understand this all of this effect. Alright, so the second one, just now we have the first category for the construction effects in terms of the stress to the body system, and then the second one we have physiological effect. Okay, apart from the physical, we have physiological effect. Okay, so exposure to noise may evoke several kinds of reflex responses. Okay, so again, this reflex response cause stress. And kalau untuk physiological, dia lebih kepada stress on emotional, okay, our emotional stress. Okay, so some example related to the emotional stress, dia may have potential which lead to heart problems, stroke, circulatory system disease. Okay, so some of these sub disease ataupun sub effect still related to the previous one, physical effect. Okay, and the other thing is that prolonged high noise exposure may persistently increases stress hormone level. Okay, and it may increase the blood pressure, which lead to hypertension. More on our mental condition, okay, and also may affect our cardiovascular diseases. Okay, okay, so ni untuk further details atau further understanding, you may explore by your own. Okay, alright. And then just now we have physiological, and then the third one we will get in brief on the third effect of psychological. Okay, kalau kita tengok most of these effect are quite interrelated, tapi dia punya own ni lah description. Alright, so kalau psychological, it relates to the emotion effect. So emotion effect, it will affect our mood, okay, and then it can be categorized into annoyance, noise annoyance, the first one, speech interference, and then sleep disturbance. Jadi antara yang common lah selalunya kalau kita dah affected dengan excessive noise generation, the first ataupun the most common what we call situation, kita tak dapat tidur yang ni lah berkualiti. and anyone kalau dia punya quality of the sleep ataupun dia punya quantity of the sleep sudah disturb, so for sure kita akan rasa terganggu. Okay, at the end kalau benda tu kita dah tak dapat nak cater, so it will cause ni lah, complaints lah for sure at the end. Okay, so in terms of the annoyance, it will cause lack of peace of mind, okay, and enjoyment. So sebab kita dah rasa stress, kita dah annoyed with the situation, with the noise generation. Okay, so kalau in terms of the record of noise, we have 55 decibel weighted. Ni pun dah jadi severe punya condition. Kalau the exposure is less than 50, it will be moderate. Okay, so in terms of the numbering, in terms of the unit, later on kita akan cuba cover jugalah, so that we know what kind of the unit that is proper and suitable for noise measurement for sound levels. Okay, and then for the speech interference, we have lack of concentration. Okay, yang ni pun common jugalah, self confidence, kita rasa macam apa benda tu dah affect kita punya daily speech quality, and then benda tu menyebabkan kita rasa fatigue, okay, irritation, misunderstanding, because low speech quality will also cause miscommunication. Okay, and kalau kita tengok kat sini, the best condition for us to have 100% speech intelligibility, so the sound level should be less or equal to 35 decibel. So maksudnya masa kita bercakap, okay, tiba-tiba ada bunyi yang sangat tinggi, and that kind of sound, that kind of noise exceeding this level, so that for sure it will affect our quality of speech. Okay, maksudnya apa yang kita sampaikan, apa yang kita cakap can be delivered well to the other party lah, to the receiver. Okay, in terms of sleep disturbance, it can be caused ataupun dia punya main factor adalah due to continuous ataupun intermittent noise. Ni pun type of noise ataupun category of noise that we are going to cover in, I think, in part 2. Okay, this one in part 2. Continuous noise, kalau lebih daripada 30 decibel weighted, dia may disturb the sleep quality and also quantity. At the end, we will face difficulty in falling asleep, frequent awakening, and also waking too early. Okay, so these are some example lah untuk psychological noise effect. Okay, sekejap ya. So far okay semua? Boleh ke? Boleh faham
Doktor.
Boleh Semua masih okey ke? Dah petang-petang ni kan? Okay, so I hope all of you still here lah untuk kita continue the class. Right, so hopefully all of you can understand the content or the sub-content for the first part of our class, okay, which is construction noise issues and management. Alright, okay, the next one, this is still related to the noise effect. However, this one I have summarized in this kind of illustration. It almost similar lah dengan yang previously more detailed. So this one quite simple. Okay, we can see that primary exposure is noise exposure. Okay, there are three main effects here. Maksudnya ni dia ada way to represent the noise effect. Okay, just now kita represent according to the we punya category of noise effect. Yang ni dia ada way to view the type of noise effect. Okay, first one we have acute effects and then chronic effects and also long-term risks, right? Okay, for example here acute effect benda yang instantaneously happen or happen immediately, okay? So it will sometimes yang ni paling common lah, decrease sleep quality and quantity as I mentioned just now, and then increase annoyance, stress and distraction. And the third one we have we may have another acute effects of temporary change in hearing. Okay, so this one again depending on the individual itself. Okay, some of us are quite sensitive, okay, with the changes of noise level. So maybe they may have these acute effects. Okay, they may have a temporary change in hearing. Okay, sebab our hearing capability, our hearing system varies from one another. Okay, some of us orang kata tak berapa sensitif with the sound, with the noise and so on. However, some of us are quite alert. Okay, they are very sensitive on any changes of noise sound level. Okay. Apart from the acute effects, we have chronic effects. Yang ni pun dah mention just now. Okay, we have several types of chronic effects. If we have a prolonged exposure of construction noise, okay, they can hypertension, reduce learning and productivity, and also endocrine disruption. Okay, so this one will be categorized as chronic effects. Okay. Again, we also have long-term risk. The long-term risk ni selalunya dia punya situation ataupun dia punya condition not happen immediately. Okay, maybe for example kalau kita ambil contoh some of the itself, okay, for the construction workers itself, they have worked for many years at construction site and they have exposed with the high noise generation. So maybe at the end they are exposed to this long-term risk. Okay, it can be heart disease. Okay, or most of the time it will relate to the permanent hearing loss and tinnitus. Okay, however, all of these are depending on the current condition of the person, of the individual itself. Okay. So benda tu vary lah, benda tu varies among other. Okay. Depend on dia punya existing health condition. Okay. Banyak lagi factor yang affect the type of the effects of noise. Okay. Maybe some of us kita punya kita ada good health condition. So benda tu still bearable lah untuk yang mana memang dah ada dia ada disease atau dia ada health condition, so dia akan affect them severely, right? Okay, ataupun kita punya sub-content, we are going to look at on noise laws and regulations. Okay, later on we will also cover on noise guidelines, right? So this one also quite important for us because once we have identified what kind of noise and what's the situation, so we must be able to relate with the available laws and regulations. Okay, so that if anything happen or in any case, okay, in terms of the noise issues, so that we can refer back to the available laws and regulation. Okay, so the purpose ataupun dia punya aim of the laws and regulation similar to the other scope or similar to the other situation or issue, aiming to minimize to help to solve the problems for sure. And for this case, it aims at minimizing exposure to the noise, right? So that's why we have all this kind of laws and regulation, all right? And for this one, The first one we have related laws and regulation here, which is Act 336 Minor Offences Act 1955. So based on these laws or this act, it has outlined the general clause ataupun dia punya general section related to the noise exposure, right? Maksudnya dia dah ada dalam kita punya akta ataupun kita punya laws and regulation. However, previously kita punya concern, kita punya consideration on noise issue still apa orang tanya sebelum ni macam tak terlalu ni kan, tak terlalu diambil kira. So that's why benda tu tak adalah tak diguna pakai sangat. Okay. And then as for now, we are moving toward sustainable development, we are moving toward green practices. So all of these noise issues should be properly managed. Okay, that's why we need to know the proper or appropriate and suitable laws and regulation to manage this situation. Alright. So based on this first act of Minor Offences Act 1955, it prohibits noise after midnight. It prohibits noise after midnight to 6 AM. Maksudnya after midnight pukul 12 malam until in the morning 6 AM. And the police are empowered to act on complaints relating to noise. So maksudnya at the early stage ataupun kita punya early laws and regulation, dia punya section ataupun dia punya clause quite general je lah. Dia just bagi this prohibition, okay, just a general prohibition in terms of restriction of the noise generation. Okay, for this act, they just mentioned noise prohibition starting from 12 midnight to 6 AM only. Okay, and then the person who are responsible, maksudnya siapa yang ada authority to cater the problem is the police themselves. Okay, okay, so maksudnya dekat early stage kita just lack of detail laws and regulation and also guidelines. Right, so the other laws and related laws and regulation yang keduanya adalah stated in EQA. Okay, this one, Environmental Quality Act 1974 Act 127. Okay. This is the other related panggil akta yang boleh diguna pakai in relation to the construction noise issues ataupun any other environmental noise issues. Okay. So based on this EQA 1974, we can refer to section 23. Okay, based on this section, pada punya clause lah under the act, it stated that no person is allowed to emit higher noise than the limit unless have permit approved by the government under article or section 21, right? So I'm not going to cover the detail of this section. However, as long as we try to cover, at least kita adalah idea ataupun kita tahu related akta to manage the noise. Okay. So later on, lagi better kalau each of us ada ni lah. Tapi depending on our job scope juga kan, nanti kita ada this copy of EQA and other related noise, related laws and regulation kan. Right, so basically this is the general section or requirement under this act. Dia dah mention kat sini, no person are allowed to generate noise higher than the limit. Okay, so for our scope, kita tak ada previously lah at our early stage, kita tak ada betul-betul the list of the permissible limit. Okay, most of the development atau most of the previous project refer to the other guidelines from the other country. Okay, so later on saya akan tunjuklah related guidelines for the construction norms. Okay, and then based on the same ATA, okay, based on this same EQA, it also stated that every person who contravenes this will commit an offence may be fined. Maksudnya akan didenda sebanyak 100,000, 100,000 maximum, or imprisoned up to 5 years. Okay, this is the penalty that will be imposed to the anyone who not comply this requirement under the section 23. Okay, so this is the statement which limit the orang panggil dia punya permissible action or permissible limit. Yeah, and then the second statement, the second requirement related to the penalty that will be imposed to the anyone yang didapati bersalah untuk generate excessive noise level, right? And the other penalty is that sometimes kalau dia punya orang panggil once they have dia dah dapat report ataupun dia dah dapat complain from the affected community or residents, depending on the severity lah juga dia punya scope of the tahap mana dia punya severity of the noise exposure. So they may have maksudnya the local authorities or any person who in charge will give the notice to stop work to the respected ataupun developer yang respected developer ataupun contractor yang terlibat. Okay, with a levy payment of 500 per day maximum for each day of the offence. Okay, so kalau 10 hari, then the 10 days will be multiple with this one 500. So dia menjadi 5,000. Okay, so depending on the fine days ni, maksudnya berapa lama dia punya penalty days ni, right? So this is the limitation ataupun requirement under the Act with the related penalty, okay, to be imposed kepada pesalah tu lah. Okay, and the next one kita ada juga still related to the EQA, Environmental Quality Act 1974, tapi yang ni the amendment, okay, in 1985 dia ada amendment for section 34A. Okay, just now kita ada ni 23, tapi yang ni dia ada additional section. Okay, kalau kita ada the copy of this act, kita boleh refer lah. Okay, so the amendment is related to the requirement of the impact assessment, environmental impact assessment. Okay, so based on the section 4A, all proposed project, all development required to submit this environmental impact assessment, okay, as a mandatory requirement under the Act. Okay, so that any impact, any what we call effect to the environment will be recorded in that report. Okay. And the most important thing is that we need to indicate what we call all the activities, all the potential effects to the nearby community, to anyone who relates to the project. Okay. And then in terms of the approval, okay, approval is bound to maximum permissibleness limit in the affected areas. Again, kita akan tengok ni dekat guidelines, okay, in terms of the noise limit. Alright, so another requirement, sub-requirement stated for the EQA Amendment 1985, it must be complied upon the construction and operation of the proposed project. Maksudnya, both stages of construction and operation of the proposed project, it kena comply in terms of this EIA report. Okay, in terms of the environmental assessment, okay, covering all part of the report is related to construction noise ataupun dia punya noise pollution, ada lagi air pollution, water pollution and so on. Any of the environmental aspect. Okay. Alright. Okay. The next one, apart from the EQA, the other related akta adalah Local Government Act 1976, Act 171. Alright, for this one, dia ada juga dia punya some requirement ataupun some section related to this issue, okay, to the construction, to the noise issue. Okay, and then kat sini dia just ada general statement of provision enabling the action to be taken against. Okay, maksudnya dia tak ada detail ni lah, detail requirement under the act. Okay, and then prosecution of owners, occupiers of premises, whether public or private, amenity noise that can be characterized as constituent to noise reason. So maksudnya dekat Local Government Act ni dia tak ada detail macam in terms of the limit ataupun in terms of the penalty. Dia still highlight the issue. Okay, so dia boleh jadi juga sub-reference, okay, ataupun inilah kita punya rujukan untuk in case of kita perlukan any panggil support from the laws and regulation. Okay. Okay. So up until Local Government Act, that one related to the noise laws and regulation. Okay, the other important part that we need to know adalah noise guidelines. Okay, tadi as I mentioned, kalau kita refer kepada laws and regulation, dia punya requirement, dia punya section quite general. So in terms of practice, in terms of the actual implementation, the thing that can guide that can guide us ataupun anyone who in charge for the noise management ataupun propose upcoming project adalah guidelines tu sendiri, sebab dia jadi satu guidelines ni macam rujukan lah in terms of the actual implementation. Okay, so at the earlier part tadi saya dah mention DOE is the main Department of Environment, is the main party ataupun kita punya one of the department that in charge for environmental issues. Okay, as the name mention lah, Department of Environment. So all of the environmental requirements ataupun dia punya issues fall under their roles and responsibility. So part of their responsibility is to come up with the guidelines for noise management. Okay, so back kalau kita refer back again to the guidelines development ni, the first one adalah since 2004. Okay, dia punya guidelines tu dia dah available lah, maksudnya for as the reference ataupun guidelines to be used by the related parties, right? And then it being reprinted in 2007, maksudnya in terms of the content, this one 2004. Okay, we have the planning guidelines for environmental noise limits and control. Okay, so nanti saya memang akan provide lah this latest latest guidelines, okay, together with this lecture or this session. Okay, nanti saya akan upload sekali dekat learning, right? So boleh refer lah in detail dia punya apa dia punya contents and apa dia punya requirements under the guidelines. Okay, so the first one in 2004 and then reprinted in 2007. Similarly, it focusing on the planning guidelines for environmental noise limit and control. Tapi in 2007 dia ada kat sini 3 books, okay? 3 books, tapi kita punya scope kita fokus kepada book 1 only, which is on environmental noise limits and control. if I'm not mistaken, the rest of the books related to vibration and so on, right? Okay, so version 2004 dengan 2007 ni, in terms of the content, dia quite ni je lah, quite similar. Tapi currently, okay, we have the latest version, okay, which is published or updated in 2019. Okay, from these two, dah update, dia ada the latest version, Guidelines for Environmental Noise Limits and Control, which is the third edition. Okay. So in 2019, we have the latest one, third edition of DOE noise guidelines. Okay. So by having the latest one, latest version has superseded the previous versions. So maksudnya current ataupun upcoming project memang akan refer to this one lah since 2019 ni. Okay, itulah 2019. Maksudnya kita dah tak boleh refer to the 2004 or 2007 sebabnya benda tu dah jadi outdated punya guidelines. Since the 2019 punya version dah updated in terms of the noise limit. Okay, according to the current requirement lah. Okay, sebab kita punya orang panggil situation, kita punya contohnya bandar ataupun development dekat bandar tu sendiri pun dah makin banyak. Okay, the city has been developed, so for sure the environment surrounding dah quite differ, so that's why they need to update the latest guidelines, okay, to be referred on. And most important thing is that the compliance may be mandatory for all proposed project. So for any development, for any proposed construction project, need to comply all the required criteria by the guidelines. Okay, in terms of the environmental noise limits and control. So that kalau dia unable to follow the guidelines, unable to comply, so that one will be problem lah for them to proceed with the project. Sebab apa-apa pun dia kena submit di IPA kan, di IPA report tu, Environmental Impact Assessment Report, which is mainly need to be based on these guidelines, right? Okay. So far okay semua? Masih okay ke? Okay. So fully, sorry. So I will continue to the next one. Okay. This one, I will show you the development ataupun improvement of this DOE guideline. So based on the latest version ataupun edition, okay, basically this guideline has recommended acceptable noise limit species for noise assessment. So nanti boleh tengok in detail lah dia punya content of these guidelines, apa dia punya requirement, apa dia punya panggil steps to conduct noise monitoring, measurement and so on. Okay. Again, prior to these guidelines, acceptable limits were based on other guidelines by the other country. Okay, for example, these two, maksudnya sebelum ni kita refer kepada these two lah, guidelines for setting and zoning of industries, and also guidelines and application for permission to install generator sets. So, previously we have a split, okay, we have split guidelines which is not cover all of the required item. So at the end, part of the initiative by the DOE, they come up with the latest version of these noise guidelines. Dia orang pun, maksudnya pihak DOE pun keep on improving the guidelines, improving the limits based on the current situation. Okay, current data lah. Okay, so this is part of the important information, okay, that we need to know based on the guidelines. because as I already mentioned, there are various information available in the guidelines in terms of the noise measurement, noise monitoring, and then permissible noise limit. So on our part, we need to know which, because in this guideline we have several schedules to be referred to. So we need to know which schedules are suitable for our project. Okay, so two main schedules that we need to refer is schedule 1 and also the other one schedule 6. It's one for the construction project, okay, because some of the schedules are for traffic, okay, traffic development. Okay, so we need to choose the right reference, okay, so that we can comply to the limit. Okay, based on the first schedule, we have this one. Okay, semua jadual ataupun dia punya schedule dalam guidelines ni under DOE, dia dah categorize based on the receiving land use category. Okay, so for example, if we go for low density residential and that one for non-sensitive sector and located within the premises for institutional such as school, hospital or worship area. So this is the limit. Okay. So dia punya limit tu according to the receiving land use category. Okay. Different category will have different noise limit. Okay. So benda tu lagi fair lah, sebab kalau kita just come up with this just one ataupun same limit, so that's not fair for the developer ataupun for the contractor lah, sebab we have
Tanya, apa ni buku yang construction noise tu, Dr. mention awal-awal tu, table dalam ni berkaitan dengan dia punya noise guideline ni macam lain lah dia punya ni.
Betul. Kalau awak tengok balik, buku tu publish in 2018, right?
Oh, ni pakai 2019
Betul. So supposed to be saya pun lupa nak remind lah. So berkenaan noise guidelines untuk DOE ni, kita akan refer to 2019. Okay? Faham ke?
Tukarlah semua nanti
Betul. So supposedly buku tu nanti pun akan di-update lah untuk latest version. Tapi so far kita ada version 2018 tu, first edition. So upcoming punya edition saya dan the rest of the author akan update lah berkenaan table ni. Okay. Thank you Harif. Sebab saya
okay, betul.
Okay. Saya lupa nak mention. Okay, if we refer back to the buku tadi, construction noise, if we refer back, that one being published in 2018. Okay, so saya and the rest of the author refer to the ni lah previous version of the guidelines, which is 2007 punya guideline. Okay, selepas buku tu dah dipublish, dah keluar guidelines baru. So kita kena refer yang ni lah, yang latest. Okay. Okay, thank you for reminding juga, saya pun lupa tadi. Okay, so sama je kalau ikutkan in terms of the receiving land use category, dia sama je, dia quite similar. Okay, we have 5 here, 5 category here, tapi yang membezakan adalah dia punya limits. Okay, pihak Department of Environment dia dah update in terms of the day time dan night time punya limit. Kalau day dia kira yang siang dia kira 7 AM to 10 PM and night time dia ambil 10 to 7. Okay, so cuba double check balik lah kat buku tu. Tapi tak ada masalah lah sebab nanti saya akan provide juga the latest guideline. And kalau ni boleh juga Google dulu, survey search dulu sebab benda tu available dekat DOE punya website. Okay. Alright, so this is schedule 1 under DOE, okay, as part of our reference for construction project development. Okay, and then we also need to refer to this to the schedule number 6. Yang ni pun ada juga amendment ataupun dia punya ni lah changes in the latest version of the guideline 2019. Okay, it has categorized based on the nurse parameter. So later on I will share to all of you what's actually this nurse indices or parameters refers to. This one L10, L90, LEQ. Okay, sebab for construction nurse itself ataupun any other type of nurse, we have several types of nurse indices which represent to each specific part. Okay, so nanti saya akan cuba cover on this parameter. So this is the parameter ataupun dia punya limits yang based accordingly to this land use category dan juga nurse parameter ni sendiri. Okay, ini pun dah memang updated punya data by DOE. Alright, so kalau kita perasan dekat table ni dia ada tulis note, dia ada note 1, note 2, okay. So kalau kat sini untuk kategori residential and sensitive areas land use category. Okay, for LEEQ night time, according to note 1, kita boleh refer to schedule 3 DOE. Okay, so dia ada changes lah sikit in terms of the limits. Okay, so for your information, schedule 3 ni kita akan menggunakan existing LEQ. Maksudnya existing LEQ at proposed location tu lah. Okay, so tu maksud dia. Sama juga dengan note 2. Cuma perbezaannya untuk note 2, mana-mana info berkenaan LEQ ni yang tak available, kita akan menggunakan, we will use this existing LEQ. However, need to add additional 3 decibel. Okay, so inilah maksud dia, note 1 and note 2. Alright, and then untuk yang ketiga atau kriteria nombor 3, kalau kita perasan dekat commercial mixed development, yang ni kan second land use category, and the third one industrial land use category, it just ada one parameter L10 only. Okay, they don't specify the L90 and also LEQ. So dia dah cakap dia tak ada no prescribed limit here for commercial and industrial land use, tapi if required dia boleh guna existing ni lah, LEQ. Sama juga. Okay, so tu maksud dia punya apa panggil permissible limits in terms of the apa panggil schedule 6 ni. Okay, nanti saya share the detail guidelines so senang kita nak refer. Okay, the next one. Okay, so far kita dah tengok guidelines untuk local, maksudnya memang fokus dekat Malaysia punya scope, which is published by the Department of Environment, DOE. Okay, for your information, we for sure have worldwide punya guidelines, which is from WHO. So as I mentioned quite several times, from other countries, diorang dah alert ataupun dah concern dengan nurse ni sendiri at the early stage. So that's why in terms of the guidelines, dia lagi ke depan lah. Okay, we dah come up with various guidelines juga. Yang ni memang untuk WHO. Okay, kalau untuk WHO ni, dia dah publish the related guidelines since 1999, okay, with the basis for deriving nurse standards within framework of nurse management. Okay, maksudnya dekat dia punya guideline, dia dah dah publish the basis in terms of the nurse standard, okay, as a reference for the related parties. Okay, the first guidelines in 1999 is on guidelines on community nurse. Ini lebih kepada environmental nurse lah. And then dia update ataupun republish again in 2009. Dia ada updates Yang ni fokus kepada nighttime noise exposure community noise. Okay. Dia ada dia punya macam DOE tadilah. Once kita dah ada current data, we need to suit our guidelines with the current situation lah. So that's why we need to have the latest edition of the guidelines. Okay, and then continue to this. The latest one has been published in 2018, right? Which focusing on the environmental noise guidelines for the European region. So, kalau ikutkan secara general, most of the countries akan still refer kepada WHO. The part of our own local guidelines, kita akan refer kepada WHO juga. Sebab dia punya requirement ataupun dia punya details, bukanlah better, maksudnya lagi comprehensive lah as compared to our guidelines. Okay. Dia cakap updated version of previous guidelines with comprehensive evidence. Okay. So maksudnya guidelines to keep on updating according to the current situation ataupun current data. Okay. This is based on the latest one by the WHO in 2018, right? So based on the guidelines, it provides noise limits and its effects for specific environment. Okay, for example, outdoor living area with LAQ for 16 hours, less than 50 dBA is considered comfortable. So maksudnya kat sini dah limit condition, berapa dia punya apa panggil noise limit and effects to the specific environment. So kalau less than 40 dBA for this situation, it will cause no annoyance, okay, no disruption of work or leisure. Like indoor, sebab dia dah categorize indoor and outdoor. And again, for this detail, what we call detail guidelines, in our local scope, we are still developing lah this one, okay. Because just now we have guidelines for the construction noise, it just channel tu lebih kepada outdoor. So, as compared to this one, they cover juga indoor. Okay, indoor, kalau LAQ less than 8 hours, which is less than 40 dBA in 8 hours, so no negative physical or mental influence. Okay, benda tu tak ada masalah lah. Kita kita highlight each of the limit and apa dia punya potential effect, right? Okay, so up until now, that's all for the noise laws, regulation and also guidelines. Semua okey ke? Boleh ni faham? So far? So, ada apa-apa nak clarify? Still okay
Okay, Doktor.
Okay alright. Okay, so semua senyap ni saya assume should be okay lah right? Kalau ada apa-apa just ni je lah interrupt saya. Okay. So that kita boleh clear terus ataupun kita boleh discuss. Okay, the next part, I think this one the last subtopic for this part if I'm not mistaken. Alright, the next one or the next part for this subtopic, we will focus on the construction noise mitigation ataupun mitigation or panggil noise control, okay? How we mitigate the noise itself, right? So, in order for us to mitigate the noise, kita kena faham this basic concept. Okay, for the noise transmission ataupun in case of construction noise, traffic noise or any other type of noise, we need to remember this concept, which is source, path and receiver. Okay, so source refers to the noise source here, and then path is the transmission path. Okay, how the noise is transmitted. Okay, what medium, okay, so that one refer to the transmission path, and then receiver. One receiver. Receiver can be anyone related to the situation. Okay, for example, here we have construction site. Okay, for example, kat sini kita consider ada construction site lah, dekat ada lori dan juga excavator ni. So this one construction site, and it is located close or near to the this residential premises ataupun residential area sini kan. So for sure the receiver will be this resident. Okay, the resident will consider as sensitive receiver, especially kalau site ni located dekat dengan sekolah, dekat dengan masjid ataupun any other worship area, and also hospital. So dia akan jadi category sensitive receiver. Okay, depending on the ni lah juga. Kalau residential pun semua akan boleh semua akan jadi sensitive receiver kalau dia terlalu dekat lah kan, terlalu dia punya distance between these two locations are quite close. So that's the concept, right? So we have no sources, the machineries ataupun inilah plants, equipment, okay, working at the construction site, and then we have receiver here, orang yang berdekatan, and kalau kita perasan kat sini ada installation of noise barrier, okay. So nanti kita akan tengok jugalah in terms of the how we mitigate using this barrier. Path ni memang dia punya laluan lah, laluan bunyi tu daripada source transfer kepada receiver. That's the concept. Sebenarnya dia as simple as ni je lah. As long as kita kena apa orang panggil identify, kita tahu which one is the sources, which one is the can be considered as transmission path and also receiver. Okay, the next one. Okay, this is the description. Okay, continue from the previous concept. Okay, this is the description of source plus receiver. Okay, source noise from construction site mainly due to construction plant and machineries. Okay, this one memang quite several times I dah mention. Sorry. And then berkenaan path or transmission path, it is the path from the noise source to transmit to the receiver. And for the receiver itself, dia boleh jadi construction workers. Saya lupa nak mention tadi. Dia boleh jadi construction workers dan juga nearby resident. So kalau construction workers, again saya dah inform earlier, construction workers ni dia relate kepada occupational noise. Okay. Occupational noise. So kalau untuk nearby resident, community itu sendiri, dia fall under environmental noise. Okay. Environmental ataupun construction noise itu sendirilah. Tadi ada dua kategori of impact. And then receiver is the one who working or living in the construction site. Sama lah, kita semua pun dah maklum lah benda ni. And as I mentioned just now, sensitive receiver mostly refers to this lah, including residential and other sensitive areas, school, mosque, hospital and other worship area. Okay. Kita dah tengok dia punya konsep source path receiver, and the next one kita cuba tengok dia punya methods lah, how to mitigate, how to control the construction noise. Okay, again here I have summarized 5 different methods to control, which can be divided into design consideration, source control. Okay, maksudnya kita control dekat source. Tadi kita dah ada konsep source, path and also receiver. Kita cuba control dekat source. And then site control. The site control ni related juga dengan control at transmission path ataupun path of the noise transmitted from source to the receiver. Transmission. Sorry, buruk sikit saya tulisan. Transmission path. And then the fourth method ataupun diberi kategori adalah time and activity limits. Okay, kita cuba ada dia punya limitation in terms of the construction time and activity ataupun dia punya time and activity constraint. And then last one we have community awareness. So saya try to go through each of these methods of control. Okay, so that kita akan lagi clear and maksudnya kita tahu which of the suitable methods to be used for a specific situation. Okay. Next one. The first one, construction noise mitigation in terms of the design consideration. Okay. So kalau ikut kat sini, for the design consideration, it mostly relates to the earlier part or earlier stage of the construction, especially during the planning stage. Okay, design consideration should be carried out ataupun should be conducted during the planning stage of the project. Stage, meaning that the earlier phase of the project. Okay, so in terms of the noise mitigation, there are several methods ataupun several alternatives that we can we should conduct. For example, the first one, design and project layout. Okay, in terms of the description, this one memang dah jadi requirement lah under the guidelines. We need to prepare environmental impact assessment, which is EIA report. Okay, in this report, we need to include all the noise assessment, okay, prediction, and what we call related or proposed suitable mitigation of construction noise. Okay. So maksudnya once kita dah assess, kita cuba do the noise monitoring and try to predict the noise, and if the noise level, some of the noise level is quite high, so we need to propose what kind of noise mitigation which is suitable for the noise exposure. Okay, so all of these need to be included under EIA report for noise assessment, right? Okay, so the next one related to the British Standard 5228 Part 1 2009 procedure. This one actually is the main method which also being referred ataupun required by OE, Department of Environment, for the related parties in order for them to predict the noise. Okay, so nanti kita pun akan cover on this one in detail. Kita try to do the required calculation, try to prepare the noise prediction using this deterministic approach, okay, using British Standard 5228, right? So based on this procedure ataupun based on this standard, prediction of different sources of construction noise from heavy plants and noisy tools. So kat sini kita dah boleh tahu, kita dah boleh predict and forecast any heavy plants and noisy tools which have higher tendency, okay, to generate higher noise level. So kita boleh ni lah cuba predict kat sini menggunakan method ataupun prosedur ni. Okay. Yang ni should be by right tomorrow lah kita akan cuba cover ni . Okay, and then the next one related to strategic noise mapping. Strategic noise mapping ni juga ada digunakan pakai most of the time ni lah dekat manufacturing industry. Okay, they come out with the noise mapping for the noise exposure within their factory ataupun manufacturing site tu lah. Kat situ dia akan ada, for example, noise contouring. Okay, noise contouring ada dia punya labeling and also noise zoning. Maksudnya kat area mana yang very high risk, low risk, okay, with all the labeling, with the colored labeling. For example, they have red zone, yellow zones and green zones. Okay, represent the severity ataupun the risk level of the noise exposure. Okay, that's the purpose ataupun function of noise mapping lah. Okay, untuk construction noise pun ada juga, cuma yang lagi applicable selalunya diguna pakai dekat manufacturing. Okay, so dia sangat ni sebab dia adalah useful managerial tool to predict construction noise level. Okay, apart from the calculation, kalau kita dah boleh come out with the noise mapping, so that one also boleh diguna pakai untuk predict the construction noise level, right? Okay, so all these three related to the design and project layout. And then in terms of the operation sequence, ni pun fall under category design consideration. Okay, sebab kita try to plan, try to schedule the operation at the planning stage. Okay, we try to properly plan and schedule the activities concurrently. Okay, so that dia punya exposure tu maksudnya tak ada dekat, maksudnya tak kerap lah. Okay, kalau high level of noise, benda tu still under control. Okay, and then we try to conduct concurrent activities. Okay, and then part of the design consideration, we can go for alternative method. Yang ni focusing on the related construction plant and machineries. Okay, and fall under the category for plant management. Okay. However, this one for sure related to the scope and also budget for the project. Okay, in terms of the plant selection, ada sama ada nak purchase ke nak rent the plant, memang itu based on the budget project tu lah. Okay, so kalau in terms of the alternative method, dia lebih kepada replacement of plants itself. Okay, for example, kalau kita ambil kat sini, contoh untuk piling work, kita ada impact hammer with bore pipe. Maksudnya kita cuba replace impact hammer, okay, as a conventional plant, okay, with bore pipe, vibration or hydraulic insertion or pressing method. Okay, maksudnya kita cuba go for alternative method yang lagi less noisy. Okay, tapi again it will relate back to the cost ataupun scope of the project itself. Okay, so pemilihan kita punya noise mitigation memang depending on each project scope and project budget, right? Okay. The next one, ni saya just nak share berkenaan related guidelines ataupun related document yang kita boleh refer to in terms of the design consideration. Okay. Dan tadi kita dah mention berkenaan EIA, Environmental Impact Assessment Guideline. So yang ni pun saya akan share juga together with this BS, British Standard, for noise monitoring, for noise prediction. So both of these will be part of our important reference, okay, in managing construction noise. Okay. The next one we have still on design consideration as first method for noise mitigation. Yang ni yang saya mention tadi, strategic noise mapping. Okay. So maksudnya based on noise mapping, it will be generated by trying different equipment and deciding which equipment is the most suitable to be used. So maksudnya dia ada try and error lah. Maksudnya dia try to allocate certain quantity, certain type of the plant and machineries, and they try to simulate, they try to run with the prediction, And at the end, they are able to come up with the best selection of the equipment to comply with the limit. Okay. So kat sini dia ada contoh lah. Ini based on, saya tak pasti daripada projek apa, tapi memang untuk construction activities. Okay. And then the main purpose of ni noise mapping tadi adalah to check permissible noise level and control the noise level from affecting the community. So in all this noise mitigation, in terms of the prediction, in terms of preparing the noise mapping, and again we try to comply with the permissible noise limit. Okay. Right. And at the same time, it helps to minimize complaints from the public or the nearby community. And then sometimes to minimize condemnation from the environmental authority. So as long as we can come up with the good assessment so that we are able to comply with the required noise level limit. Okay. All right. This is the example. As now as I mentioned, replacement ataupun alternative method in terms of the equipment replacement. If impact hammer, we replace with the hydraulic machine, so it will reduce the noise. Okay. So again, it will depend on project budget. Okay. So just panggil option for the noise mitigation. Okay. So kita punya pemilihan tu depend on own ni lah. Kita punya own planning, own design and so on. Right. Okay. Okay, this is I think the second type of noise mitigation methods, which is source control. Okay, as I mentioned previously, for the source control, if we look at back and relate to the source path and receiver concept. So this one we try to mitigate the noise at the source, okay, at the noise source. And some method that we can apply or we can try to construct is by build or install temporary noise wall, whereby we need to install temporary noise barrier at excessive noise sources. Okay, on this bottom part, left side, we have the example on how to install the temporary noise wall. Okay, so that we try to control the noise level using this barrier or temporary noise barrier. Okay, which for example we have higher machine or highest noise generated from a specific machine, then we try to come up with this noise mitigation. And the other method alternative that we can done, we can install is that enclosure and placement. Okay, try to build enclosure for on-site generator and air compressor. Okay, so that it will similar concept. It will enclose the noise exposure level. Okay. In terms of the placement, we try to place or locate noisy equipment far away from the sensitive receiver. Okay, so for example, kalau dekat site tu, we have this shape, and this is the residential area. We try to plan our site layout, okay, our site arrangement. Okay, the noisiest one should be farthest from this residential area. Okay. So far, okay lagi? Semua? Dah almost. Boleh Alright. Okay, the next one, the third one is related to the site control. Okay, for the site control, just now we have source, then site control related to the how we control the noise in terms of ni relate kepada path, okay, transmission path kalau yang barrier ataupun holding. Sometimes kita install noise barrier to cut the noise transmission ataupun to ni lah panggil to reflect or cut the transmission path. Okay. Part of the site control, kalau kita tengok some of the construction site dia dah come up with this noise limit display. Okay. Tengok contoh kat bawah ni. Dekat site tu dia dah ada continuous noise level monitoring. So kat situ dia boleh display the current level of noise at their site. Okay. So employ site noise limit at certain receiver point. So by having this kind of method or alternative, they can present the information to the parties involved at the construction site. So kita boleh tengok berapa dia punya current level of noise during certain construction activities. Okay, so it will be displayed at the construction site with the current noise level. So sebenarnya ni quite a good approach if kita dah boleh tahu berapa current noise level. Okay, this one, the next one, noise barrier and holding. As I mentioned, this is the approach or mitigation measures for transmission path. Okay, so we try to install noise barrier and paling common holding ni lah. Holding is just a simple holding, tapi sometimes kita boleh menggunakan konsep holding ganti dengan noise barrier. So construct barrier including holding around the construction site. That one we try to cut the transmission path from the source and to the receiver. Okay. So kalau kita tengok banyak je projek ataupun ni lah. Selalunya noise barrier ni kita boleh tengok banyak dekat tepi ni, tepi jalan raya kan. Situ pun traffic noise barrier. So dia punya purpose, serve the purpose in controlling the noise transmission. Okay. Okay, the next method category adalah berkenaan time and activity constraints or limit. Okay, yang ni lebih kepada management punya planning jugalah. Sebab we try to limit the construction time of each possible activity or work. Okay, maksudnya kita fokus or optimize the works to be constructed during the day instead of have extended period to work at night. So try to limit working at night. Okay, however, kita still ada dia projek yang orang panggil bergerak waktu malam ni kan. Cuma depending on the approval ataupun permission by the local authorities ataupun any respected parties lah. Okay, kalau without permission, without any permission, without any apa-apa approval, so that one will become an issue lah. Okay, because working at night mostly akan cause noise annoyance sebab pada waktu malam kan dia punya surrounding pun dah quite different compared to daytime. So it will cause mostly cause noise annoyance to the nearby resident. Okay. Maksudnya mana-mana community yang stay close to the construction site. Okay, however, we need to balance the limitation in order to avoid any interruption on the project plan and schedule. So we need to come up with a good plan and optimized plan in order for us to construct the work accordingly and at the same time to avoid any unwanted construction issue. Okay. So do we have more? Okay, the last one we have this community awareness. Okay, so community awareness actually part of the noise mitigation ni lebih kepada apa, just a simple mitigation ataupun approach, okay. It's related to the awareness on noise annoyance among nearby residents should be given before any activity take place. So maksudnya the nearby resident atau community tidak aware dengan upcoming project, okay, earlier, okay, so maksudnya dia dah tahu lebih awal untuk any project to be developed, so kita kena yalah, that's why we need this putting the signboard, okay, does the community to be aware of the activities, okay. Involvement of the public and affected property owners early in project may help to reduce annoyance. So kalau benda tu dah diberitahu awal and still we need practice the other noise mitigation, so hopefully it will help in controlling the construction noise effect lah. Okay, so saya rasa that's all for the first part. Right, so that's all for the first part. So later we try to cover on the next part, focusing on noise propagation. So far okay ke semua? Boleh Clear ke?
Okay, Doktor.
Okay
Doktor,
Right.
kena baca balik. Ya.
Apa? Saya tak clear lah.
Pening sikit, Doktor.
Pening?
Nanti nak revise balik Doktor. Buka balik video. Dan tengok slow-slow.
Oh, saya cakap terlalu laju ke?
No. It's
Kan, nak
always
kena hadap,
we
kena
need time
baca.
to digest because
Ya,
terus sampai malam kan.
Ya, betul-betul. And then untuk first part ni memang fokus on banyak kepada fundamental kan. Banyak kepada teori. So tak apa, boleh take your time lah. Tengok balik video later on So far bolehlah untuk setakat ni. Okay, kalau later on ada apa-apa soalan pun boleh tanyalah. Okay, before kita proceed malam ni, nanti kita jumpa untuk sesi kedua lah, part 2. Boleh Okay, semua okay ni? Okay. So for the first part, okay, for the first session, boleh scan attendance dulu. So nanti insyaAllah hopefully kita akan jumpa malam nanti. Okay.